The laughter is loud. It bounces off the corrugated steel walls, harsh and unforgiving. It is the kind of laugh that doesn't just mock you, it dismisses your entire existence. It is a laugh born of absolute certainty. The man laughing, let's call him Miller, is a 230-pound wall of muscle. He is standing with his arms crossed, biceps bulging against his t-shirt, looking down at a man who is half his size. To Miller, this situation is a joke. It's a comedy sketch. He looks at the smaller man, shaking his head, wondering when the performance is going to end so the real training can begin. But here is the thing about that laughter. It has an expiration date. In exactly 60 seconds, that sound is going to be replaced by something else. A silence so heavy you will be able to hear the dust settle on the concrete floor. In 60 seconds, the laws of physics are going to look like mere suggestions. Because the man being laughed at isn't just standing there taking it, he is calculating. He is preparing to demonstrate a level of biomechanical efficiency that will not only shut the big man up, but will change the way we understand human power for the next 50 years. But right now the clock is just starting to tick. Welcome to Oakland, California. The year is 1964. We are standing inside a garage that has become something of an underground legend. This isn't a modern, sanitized fitness club. There is no air conditioning. There are no mirrors to admire yourself in. The air here is thick, smelling of oxidized iron, stale sweat, and the sharp tang of liniment oil. It is a dungeon for people who are obsessed with the limits of the human body. James Lee's garage is where the serious people go. It's where martial artists, street fighters, and weightlifters cross paths to see whose method actually works when the talking stops. And today, the garage is crowded. On one side of the room you have the old guard. These are the iron movers. Men like Miller. They subscribe to a very simple, visible truth. Size equals power. If you want to hit harder, you get bigger. If you want to dominate, you add mass. To them, muscles are armor and weapons combined. They look at a barbell loaded with 400 pounds and they respect it. They look at anything else as a parlor trick. On the other side, standing perfectly still, is a 24-year-old Bruce Lee. He is shirtless, sweating, and terrifyingly calm. But to the naked eye, he looks unimposing. He weighs 125 pounds. Standing next to Miller, he looks like a child. His frame is slight. He doesn't have the massive chest or the pythons for arms. He looks wiry, fragile even. Miller watches Bruce running through a drill. It's a strange movement, something internal, focusing on the snap of the hip. Miller can't take it anymore. He steps forward, interrupting the flow. The room goes quiet, but it's an awkward quiet. The kind where everyone looks at their shoes because they know something embarrassing is about to happen. Miller asks, loud enough for everyone to hear, if Bruce is actually training or just posing for a dance recital. A few of the bodybuilders chuckle. It's a valid question in their world. If you aren't moving heavy iron, what are you doing? Miller doubles down. He steps into Bruce's personal space. He towers over him, casting a literal shadow across Bruce's face. He tells the young man that all this speed and philosophy is cute, but in a real fight or against a real obstacle, mass wins. Newton's second law. Force equals mass times acceleration, and Miller has all the mass. The tension in the room is thick enough to choke on. This is the moment where most men would crumble, or they would get angry. They would shout back, puff up their chest, try to compensate for the size difference with volume. Bruce does neither. He doesn't look up with anger, he looks up with curiosity. He drops his hands to his sides. He looks at Miller with the clinical detachment of a surgeon looking at a patient who doesn't know he's sick yet. Bruce speaks softly. He doesn't argue about theories. He points to the heavy bag hanging in the corner of the garage. It's a standard heavy bag, filled with sand and rags, weighing roughly 70 pounds. It's dense. Hitting it feels like hitting a suspended corpse. It doesn't swing easily. It absorbs impact. Miller looks at the bag, then back at Bruce. He smirks. He's bench-pressed 3 times that weight before breakfast. Then comes the condition, the stupid trick that sets everything in motion. Bruce tells Miller that power isn't about size, it's about distance. He claims he can generate more force in less than an inch of space than Miller can with a full wind-up. Miller laughs again. That loud, barking laugh from the beginning. He thinks Bruce is hustling him. It's physically impossible. To move a heavy object, you need momentum. You need to pull your arm back, twist your torso, and drive through. You need a runway. No wind-up? Miller asks, incredulous. You mean just touching it? Bruce nods. Miller shakes his head. He accepts the bet, but he does it with a sneer. He walks over to the bag to demonstrate how it's supposed to be done. He stands behind it, bracing himself. He wants to show Bruce what real force looks like. He wraps his massive arms around the bag, squeezing it, showing off the density of his own muscle. He is the anchor. He tells Bruce to go ahead. Give it his best shot. He's ready to stand there and not move an inch, proving once and for all that the little man is a fraud. The students in the garage shift uncomfortably. They like Bruce, they respect him. But they have eyes. They see the physics of the situation. A 125-pound object cannot displace a braced 230-pound object without significant momentum. It's just math. They are preparing themselves to watch their teacher fail. They are preparing for the humiliation. Bruce walks over to the bag. He steps into the pocket, dangerously close. He stands squarely in front of Miller, who is hidden behind the leather cylinder, smirking. Bruce extends his right arm. He doesn't pull it back. He extends it until his fingers are lightly touching the canvas of the bag. He closes his hand into a loose fist. The distance between his knuckles and the target is 0. Miller calls out from behind the bag, telling him to get on with it. He's bored. He's ready to go back to lifting real weights. Bruce adjusts his feet. It's a micro-adjustment, barely visible. He rotates his right heel slightly outward. He bends his knees just a fraction of an inch. He isn't winding up. He is rooting. He is connecting his skeletal structure to the concrete floor beneath him. To Miller and to most of the room, Bruce looks like he is just standing there. They are waiting for him to pull back. They are waiting for the wind-up that Bruce promised he wouldn't use. But they are looking at the wrong thing. They are looking at the arm. They should be looking at the hips. They should be looking at the eyes. The room freezes. The laughter has died down to a murmur, waiting for the punchline of the joke. Miller braces himself, tightening his core, preparing to absorb a little tap. Bruce inhales sharply. His eyes widen just a fraction. What happens in the next millisecond is too fast for the human eye to track in real time. It isn't a push. It isn't a shove. It is a kinetic explosion triggered from absolute stillness. The laughter is gone. The ticking clock stops, and the garage is about to witness the impossible. Snap. The sound isn't a thud. It sounds like a gunshot went off inside the garage. In a fraction of a second, Bruce's wrist snaps upward. His hips rotate a microscopic amount. His knees lock. That entire kinetic chain, from the heel of his foot, up through the thigh, spiraling through the waist and exploding out through the fist, transfers 100% of his energy into the heavy bag. And Miller, the human tank, the man who was braced like a concrete pillar? He doesn't just step back, he lifts. For a terrifying heartbeat, both of Miller's feet leave the ground. The force travels through the bag, through his arms, and slams into his chest with the violence of a car crash. He flies backward, stumbling, his arms flailing, trying to grab onto air that isn't there. He crashes into the wall 5 feet away. The impact is so hard that the screwdrivers and wrenches hanging on the pegboard rattle against the metal. He slides down, hitting the floor in a heap of confused muscle and bruised ego. Then there is silence. It is absolute. It is the kind of silence that happens when your brain refuses to process what your eyes just saw. The bodybuilders in the room are frozen. Their mouths are slightly open. They look from the small man to the big man, and the math isn't adding up. The stupid trick just sent a 230-pound man airborne. Miller sits there on the dirty concrete, clutching his chest. He isn't angry anymore. He's gasping for air, his eyes wide, looking at Bruce as if he just saw a ghost. He checks his ribs. He's trying to understand how a touch without a wind-up felt like being hit with a sledgehammer. This is the pivot point. This is where the story usually goes one of two ways. In the movies, the hero stands over the defeated bully and delivers a witty one-liner. He gloats. He enjoys the humiliation of the skeptic. He proves his dominance and walks away, leaving the other man broken. But Bruce doesn't do that. He breaks his stance immediately. The intensity vanishes from his face, replaced by a soft, almost boyish concern. He walks over to the wall. He doesn't look down at Miller. He bends down to him. He extends a hand. "Are you okay?" Bruce asks. Miller looks at the hand. Then he looks at Bruce. The arrogance is gone. The skepticism has evaporated, replaced by a profound respect that only comes from being physically humbled. He takes Bruce's hand, and the smaller man pulls him up. Bruce doesn't lecture him on being wrong. He begins to explain the why. He talks about the kinetic chain. He explains that while Miller has more muscle, he was only using his arms. Bruce was using the floor. He explains that tension is the enemy of speed. By staying relaxed until the very last millisecond, Bruce allowed the energy to travel without resistance. He didn't beat Miller with strength. He beat him with efficiency. The room starts to breathe again. The bodybuilders gather around, no longer looking at Bruce as a curiosity, but as a teacher. Miller, rubbing his chest, nods. He listens. He asks questions. In less than 2 minutes, the dynamic of the entire room has shifted. The hostility is gone. The tribalism between the lifters and the fighters has dissolved. This moment, this one-inch punch, became a legend, not because of the violence, but because of the lesson. It forced the athletic world to rethink everything. It proved that bigger isn't always better. It proved that coordination trumps bulk. It sowed the seeds for modern sports science, where we now understand that neuromuscular recruitment, how many muscle fibers you can fire at once, is the true metric of power. Bruce Lee took a room full of doubters and turned them into students without throwing a single insult. He didn't destroy his enemy, he converted him. And that brings us to the mirror. We all have a Miller in our lives. Maybe it's a boss, a critic, or a system that tells us we are too small, too inexperienced, or too different to make an impact. We all face that wall of skepticism where people judge us by the wrong metrics. They judge your volume, not your intensity. They judge your wind-up, not your impact, but flip the reflection. Where are you the one mistaking bulk for power? In your business, are you chasing revenue, the size, while ignoring the profit, the efficiency, the punch? In your relationships, are you using volume and anger to win arguments, mistaking loudness for authority? Are you bracing yourself against the world, stiff and rigid, thinking that hardness will protect you, when in reality, it just makes you easier to knock over? Bruce Lee's philosophy wasn't just about fighting. It was about honesty. It was about stripping away the non-essential until only the truth remained. He showed us that you don't need a runway to make an impact if your foundation is solid. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most powerful. So, the next time you finally prove someone wrong, and you will, pay attention to what you do next. That is the real test of character. When you land that deal, when you win that argument, when you surpass the people who laughed at you. Do you stand over them and gloat? Do you use your victory to humiliate the people who didn't believe in you? Or do you extend a hand? Do you have the security to pull them up and say, "Let me show you how I did it"? Because real strength isn't just about the ability to break things. Any sledgehammer can destroy a wall. Real strength is the ability to build something new in the silence that follows. The one-inch punch didn't just move a man, it moved a mindset. Now look at your hands. You don't need more time. You don't need more space. You don't need a wind-up. You just need to focus everything you have right now into the very next inch. Make it count.